Hello and welcome to another Oxygen XML webinar. My name is George Bina and I invited my colleague Octavian to present you a new webinar in the series of webinars that cover enforcing business rules. Last month, Octavian presented a webinar called guiding. Let me see. Guiding authoring, enforcing editing rules, and you can find a recording of that available on our website in the events section, in the past events, as well as on YouTube on the Oxygen XML channel. So last month, Octavian presented a number of use cases and how Oxygen can help authors. All that was presented from the user perspective, and now we want to look more into how you can create automatic fixes and how you can enforce business rules. Today's webinar will also be recorded and it will be made available on our usual channels that I mentioned earlier. So either the events page on our website or on YouTube we have the Oxygen XML channel. You will also receive a notification with the recording as soon as that will be available. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them at any time. Although we reserved some space, some time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers, you can ask questions anytime using either the questions panel in the GoToWebinar interface, or we will also monitor Twitter, so you can use the hash OxygenXML, so the hashtag OxygenXML. We'll take, so we will answer your questions as we go, and at the end we will take also these questions at the end so we can answer them publicly. Octavian already made available on the Oxygen events page for this webinar the samples used during this session. I will post the link to that on the chat panel of the GoToWebinar interface. So you can look and find that link in the chat in a minute. That being said, I will give control to Octavian so he can start today's webinar, today's presentation. Hi, Octavian.
Hi, George. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Octavian Adolu. Thanks for joining us to this webinar. So, as George already told you, this is the second webinar from a series of two. We discussed in the previous webinar about enforcing editing rules, and I showed some examples on how Oxygen handles this rules check and how it helps the user and guides him through the editing process. In this webinar, we will focus on the business rules and how you can create business rules and check them automatically in your project, and how you can actually create fixes that will solve the business rules constraints. So here's an overview of the presentation. In the first part, I'll show you how to create this Schematron check, so these business rules checks automatically using Schematron. Then I'll tell you about the Schematron Quick Fix language and how you can use it, and how this SQF language integrates with the Schematron. Then I'll show you some examples and simple cases and more complex one using refactoring and automatic tagging. So as I told you in the previous webinar, we discussed about these rules that are enforced during the editing process and how Oxygen helps us to get a document in the format that we want without concerning about the rules that we must follow and focus on the content that we are writing. So Oxygen guides us through the editing process by helping us to choose the correct markup, or it shows us hints, or it offers us solutions if you break the document structure, or if you are editing the document in a different application and then you come back in Oxygen and you are trying to edit it. Oxygen will help you to solve these structural problems, but also will help you to enforce different rules specific for your project and get the document in the format that you want. We discussed also about business rules, and I showed you some examples. So business rules are rules that cannot be imposed by the schema and are custom for your project. So if you have a documentations project, or maybe XSL projects or other type of projects, then you can impose a set of rules on these projects. And I showed you as an example our documentation project and how we impose different type of rules on our documentation project. I have also a file here. It's an HTML file which contains the rules that are applied on our user guide, so on our documentation project, and are hundreds of rules here. So are rules regarding the icons, or rules regarding the images, the lists, the notes, and so on. So are many rules here. I split these rules in some simple in 4 types. So are simple styling rules related to the styling of the titles or to the styling of the list. Then editing consistency rules or structure rules that cannot be imposed through by the schema, and also output rules related to the output, so to make sure that our output is generated correctly. But it's hard for your team to remember all these rules. So you can have hundreds of rules or maybe more, and you want to make sure that your project is consistent, and you want to make sure that all your authors will make the same fixes and will follow the same rules. So you need a way to make this process automatic. And to implement these rules, you can use the Schematron language, which will help you to generate automatic errors and warnings in your editor. But being the Schematron language being a standard, you can also use it in other application if you want, or maybe you can use it on a server to run the checks there after a commit or something. So you can if you implement these rule checks in Schematron, you will be able to check them also in other application. And I've created a simple project here. It's a data project to exemplify how these business rules can be created and how are checked in Oxygen. You can use any other project if you want. As I told you, if it's an XML project, then you can use it on any other project, maybe data or Dogbook, or maybe schemas and so on. So let's switch to Oxygen and see how we can implement a set of rules, a set of constraints on our data project. So I have here this data map, and I have 4 topics here, some introduction and something about care and preparation of the flowers. And we have some rules that we want to enforce on this project. So, for example, here in the title, a bold element is used, and I want to avoid this in my project. Or here, a semicolon is added at the end of a list item, and I want to use a full stop here instead, or maybe I want to remove it. So I want to impose some rules. Also here, for example, I have some sections and I want to generate IDs for this section, and I want to make sure that all the authors, when they create sections, they'll have this ID set. And for example, on the topic I want to have an ID that it's equal with the file name. So I want specific constraints for my project. I've created also a file containing these rules. So I split it in these 4 categories. There are simple styling rules, editing consistency, structure and output rules, and I want to implement them to make sure that my project follows them. So let's implement the first one, for example. And I'll create a Schematron file for this. So new in project, file, and I'll choose a Schematron type, and I'll set a name for this file. Let's say rules, say create. So I've created a Schematron file, and I want to implement the first rule, styling is not allowed in a title element. So I'll insert here a Schematron pattern, and then in the pattern I will insert a rule. So I'll select Schematron, a rule, and the context of this rule that I want to create is the title element. So I just type here title, and then I need to type the assert or the report, that the constraint that I want to add. So I'll insert here a report. So when a bold element is found in the title, I want to present a message and say bold element is not allowed in title. Okay, then I will save this, and I need to enforce this rule on all my project files. And because I'm using a data project and I'm using data files, I can change the current data validation scenario that is applied on these files and add my rules check there. If you have other framework, then you need to change that type of framework that you are using. So for this, I'll go to Options, Preferences, Document Type Association, and here I have the data framework. And this is the data framework that comes with Oxygen, and I don't want to modify the standard data framework, and I will make an extension of it. So I want my customization to be separate from the standard data framework. So I'll just extend this framework. I'll set a name, let's say custom. And in this extension, I want to change only the validation part. So I'll go in the validation tab, and here I have the scenario, the validation scenario that it applies on the data files. So I'll click Edit here, right-click Edit, and here I have some rules that are already applied on the data files and are rules regarding the structure, and we have also some Schematron checks here regarding the styling of the data files. And I'll add another one. I'll validate as XML document. I want to check this automatically as I type, and I'll set here the schema file, so my rules schema. And because I want to share this with my team, and I already shared with you the project, I need to change this part here to be relative to the project. So I will delete this part and I will insert a macro which says the current project directory URL. Then I will save this rule, I will save the scenario, and I will put also the frameworks to be saved in my project. So I want that this customization to be saved in my project, so I can, if you get the project, then you'll get also my customization of the data framework. Then save it, and now we see that we have our rule here. So the error is signaled in the document, and if I go in other file, for example, and I insert here a bold element, you'll get the same error also here. So all my project files now will signal the rules that I will add in this rules file. To speed up a little bit, I've already created the other rules, the other checks from my file, and I'll just copy them and paste it here in the rules file. Then I'll save it. So are similar rules regarding the lists, or rules regarding the XREF or the tables. And now if I go in one of these files and I'll make a modification to trigger the validation, we see that the rules are already displayed. So bold is not allowed in title. Here we have semicolon is not allowed after list item, or here we have a link. The text and the link are similar. In this file we have rules regarding the ID of the file, the ID of the topic that must be equal with the file name, or here rules regarding the IDs of the sections. So using Schematron, you can automatically check these business rules in your project, and you can easily share them with your team. Schematron is a standard, it's an ISO standard, and as I told you, you can use these checks in any other application, so you'll not get stuck here. It's very simple to add these rule checks in Oxygen. As I showed you, you can easily extend the framework and change the validation scenario and add a new rule there. And using this approach, you can easily add custom checks for your project. Now, sometimes it's not enough to have these messages presented. You need also a solution to solve these constraints, or even if you know how to fix it, sometimes it's easier for the user to just have one click to solve the problem. And for example, here in my project, if I want to set IDs to all my section, if I have, for example, 10 or 15 sections, then it's hard to add IDs to all these sections. So an action that will just help me to add IDs to all my section and add the IDs in the format that I want, it's more easy to use. Or, for example, here in the table you have empty cells, those marked with gray, and it's easier for you to just to type to click an action and have all these empty cells created. And other examples. So a solution that will solve you this issue to generate automatically the constraints, to apply automatically the constraints of the business rules will be great. So for this you can use the Schematron language. The Schematron language is an extension of the the Schematron Quick Fix language, which is an extension of the Schematron language. So the Schematron Quick Fix language allows you to define your custom fixes for the Schematron checks. Um, it's a language that was developed as an extension of the Schematron and allows you, as I told you, to define these user-defined fixes. This language was initiated by Nico Kucherauer, and the project and samples are available on the GitHub. You can find also the specification there, and you can check the last version of the specification and also sample files. Last year, the first draft of the specification was released, and it's available on the W3C community group, but also on the GitHub project, and you can check these links. I will share the slides with you, and you can check this link also in the slides. And before I will continue with the presentation, we have a poll, and I'll ask George to start this poll to see if you know. Okay, George?
Yes, yes, I already started it. So we wanted to know how much do you know about Schematron Quick Fix? If you already used it, if you just heard about it and you plan to use it, you know about it, but you're not sure you ever get the time to learn and write these quick fixes, or you are interested to know more about SQF from the user perspective, what it can do, so you can ask maybe a developer to create such automatic fixes for you. And maybe you don't know anything about SQF at all. So, and now it's a good chance to find out more about what it can do. Okay, we'll leave this 10 more seconds or so. Okay, I see that we got most of the people voted. So let's see also the results. So we have about half of the attendees do not know anything about SQF, but we have also a good number, a good percentage that plan to use it in the future. So I guess you'll find both will find what Octavian will show next very useful. Of course, you also need to know about SQF even if you do not want ever to learn it, at least to know what to ask your developers to do. So Octavian, back to you.
Okay, thank you, George. Great answers, yeah. I hope I will convince you to use it if you are not using it, and I hope that my presentation will help you to learn more about this Schematron Quick Fix language. So the Schematron Quick Fix language, it's added as an extension of the Schematron language. It uses a different namespace, so it's like an annotation added in Schematron, and if you are using that Schematron in other application that does not support the Schematron Quick Fixes, this will work, the reports and the asserts, but only the fix will not work. So these fixes are associated using the SQF fix attributes added on the Schematron report or assert. So you just need to type this SQF fix attribute, and the fix looks like this. So you have here a simple fix that will remove some comments. The structure of the fix, it's very simple. So you have an ID, which is used to refer the fix. You have some description, which is presented to the user, and some paragraphs, and also the operation that will be performed when the user clicks the fix. So you need to specify also an operation that will be performed on the document. And there are 4 types of operations that can be used. You can use an add operation if you want to add a node or a fragment in the document. You can use delete operation if you want to delete a node from the document. You can use the replace operation if you want to replace a node or a fragment with another node or a fragment. And the string replace operation, which is special for text nodes and allows you to match a specific part of the text using a regular expression and replace that part with other text or with a fragment or a node if you want. And I will show you some examples, some simple example on how to use this type of operations. So the first one is the add operation, and I choose here an example to add a new list item in a list. So I have a constraint on a list that says, okay, you have a list with only one list item. So I want to offer a fix that will add a new list item in the list. And to do this, we have this rule that it's in the context of an unordered list and checks that the number of the list items from the list is greater than 1. And if this fails, then this message is presented. A list item must have more than one list item. And you'll have also this fix that is referred here presented. And the fix has this description, add new list item, that is presented to the user. And when the user clicks the fix, this operation will be executed. So an add, so an element will be added. The type of the node that will be added is specified by the node type attribute. Then this is the name of the element that will be added. So it will be a list item. And as position, I want to add as last child in my list. So the context of the fix is the context specified here in the rule, the list, the unordered list. Let's see how we can implement this in Oxygen and how it looks in Oxygen. So I'll go to my rules file and I have here the rule. So here in the context of an unordered list, it checks that the list items number is greater than 1, and after this assert I'll add a fix. So I'll select SQF fix and I'll specify an ID, add list item, and then a title, add new list item, and then the operation that will be executed, SQF add, and here as node type I want to insert an element. You can insert also an attribute or a comment or a processing instruction. I want to insert an element here, and the name of the element is specified by the target attribute, and I want to insert a list item, and I want to insert in the position in the as last child of the list. And I can also insert content in this new element, even in the select attribute or directly here in the add element. And I can insert also a paragraph, for example, here in the list item. Then I need to refer this fix in the assert. So the SQF fix attribute, and I'll get in the content completion the fix that I've created. I'll save the file, and now if I'll go in this file, I think, yeah, here I have a list that has only one list item, and if I make a modification here to trigger the validation again, we see that I get now the message, but also the fix that tells me to add a new list item. And if I click it, we see that the new list item is added and also the paragraph that I specified, and I can easily type here the text. So we created a fix that uses the add operation. Now let's say how we can create a fix that it uses the delete operation. And as example, I choose here a fix that will remove the redundant text from a link. So I have here a link, an xref that has an href value equals with the text value from the xref. So I want to remove this text from here. And the fix, it's in fact very simple. So we have this check on the rule in the context of the xref, and we see that it checks that the href value is equals with text and presents me this message if it's not. And the fix that will be executed is this one that will delete the text from the context, which is the xref element. Let's implement also this operation in Oxygen. So I'll go also in the rules file, and here I have the rule that checks the xref is equal with the text, and I'll add here a fix to remove this text from the xref element. So I'll say skf fix, I'll type an ID, remove text, then the description will be remove redundant text, and the operation will be a delete operation this time, and here I need to specify just the match attribute which will match the node that I want to remove, and I want to remove the text node from the xref. Then I just need to refer the fix in my report. So I'll say skf fix remove text here, save the file, and now if I go here in the introduction topic, we see that we have here xref which contains a text and has this text is similar with the href attribute value. If I make a modification here to trigger the validation, I'll get also the fix that I've created. So now this action is presented, and if I click it, we see that the error is gone, and now we don't have text here. It's just the rendering of the if I type here for to show the text page, yes. If I show the text page, yeah, we see that we have an xref just with this value, href value. So we've seen the delete operation. Now let's see the replace operation. So we have an operation that will replace the bold element and its content, and I want to use instead of this the content of the bold element. So I want to create a fix that will change the bold element and its content and replace it with the text from it. So the fix looks like this. So we have a rule, the rule that we created at the beginning of the presentation that checks the bold element is not allowed in title, and the fix is this one, and we have this operation here that says replace and matches the bold element from the title. So the context of the rule is title, and we replace this bold element and its content with the children of the bold element. Using the node function, you'll get the children of the node. So let's implement also this operation in Oxygen and see how it applies. We'll go again in the Schematron file, and we have here a rule. It's the first one here, and we'll add here a fix after the report. So SQF fix, and we say resolve bold, and the name will be replace bold with its content. And the operation should be a replace operation. So from the SQF, I'll choose the replace operation, and I want to replace the bold element from the title. So I'm in the context of the title, and I'll just type here bold, and then I want to replace it with its content, so I'll just type here node. You can replace it with other things if you want, and you in this attribute value you can set other XPath expression if you want, or you can replace it with a fragment and type the fragment inside the replace operation if you want. So let's continue. I'll refer here the fix and then save the file. Now if I go in the introduction and make here a modification to trigger the validation, we'll see that we get the message, and also we get this operation that I've created that will replace this bold with its content. And now if I go also here, I'll get the same operation, replace bold with content. Now I have only the topic ID problem. Now let's see the string replace operation. As I told you, this is used only on text nodes, so can be applied only on text nodes. And I have here a fix that will replace the semicolon from the end of a list item, and I'll replace it with a full stop. So for this, I have a rule that matches the list item and checks that the last text from the list item ends with semicolon. And if it ends with semicolon, then we'll display this message. And the operation that I want to apply, the fix that I want to create, is to replace the semicolon with full stop, and I'll use this string replace operation. I'll match the text node, and I'll match the last text node from the list item in case you have multiple text, for example, separated by other nodes in the list item. You'll want to match the last one. And here in the last text, I'll apply a regular expression that will check that will match the semicolon from the end of the text. And in the select attribute, I will specify the content which I want to use to replace this match. So let's implement also this operation in Oxygen. I'll switch to the Schematron file, and let's search for the check this one, for the check that verifies that semicolon is not allowed after a list item. And here I'll add a fix to replace this semicolon with full stop. So I'll set SQF fix replace, let's say replace semicolon. The name should be replace semicolon with full stop, and here I'll insert the operation that will be executed, and I want to use a string replace operation. As I told you, I want to match in the text, I want to match the semicolon from the end. So I'll use a regular expression for this, and I want to apply this on the text node from the list item, but I want the last text node. So I will use the last function to match the last text node from the list item, and I want to replace it with full stop. Now I will refer the fix in my Schematron check, save it, and now if I go here in the introduction file, I'll get the fix that will say replace semicolon with full stop, and if I click it, we see that this fix is applied. So we've seen the 4 operations that can be used in the Schematron Quick Fix language, and as you see, the structure of the fix is not so complicated. So this language is very simple, and it has 15 elements. You've seen that you have in a fix you have only an ID, a description of the fix, and the operation that will be performed, and it allows you to define your own fixes on the checks that you are doing on the project, and there are just 4 types of operation that needs to be learned in order to create these Schematron fixes. Now let's see how we can implement some more complex fixes. For example, if you want to ask the user about a value that that he wants to insert in the document. So for example, I have here a rule that checks that the list should have an ID, but I want the user to specify the ID that will be inserted. So for this you can use an user entry element from Schematron, and you will get the value that needs to be inserted, and then you apply the fix using that value. Let's see how we can create this type of fix. So we'll use an user entry to generate this fix, and we have a rule on an unordered list that checks that the ID attribute exists, and the fix is this one. It will tell the user to specify an ID, and I added here an user entry element which has a name and a value that will be presented, a title, a description that will be presented to the user when the user clicks the fix. The ID will be used to get the value inserted by the user. So this list ID is the value that the user inserted, and then I added an operation that will create an attribute, so node type attribute. The name of the attribute will be ID, and the value of the attribute will be the one inserted by the user. So we just need to put this user entry element to get the value from the user. Let's create this operation also, this fix in Oxygen. So I think I have here a rule on the unordered list, and I will add here a check. So I will say Schematron check that will assert that an ID attribute exists on a list, say SQF, and I'll type a name, the message that will be displayed to the user, and ID an ID must be specified on the list, and then I'll create a fix, SQF fix, let's say add ID, the name, the title of the fix will be specify ID attribute, and then I want to get the value of the attribute from the user. So here I will use an SQF user entry element, and it will be ID, let's say ID value, and the message presented to the user to insert this value will be this one. And the operation to be executed, so I want to add an ID, so I'll use an add operation, but this time as no type I'll use attribute, so I want to add an attribute, and as name I want to add an attribute with the ID name, and the value will be ID val, the one that the user specifies. Now let's refer the fix in the assert, and if I go here, for example, and triggers the validation, we have here the rule that I added. So it says, okay, add an ID to the list, and the user can click this fix to specify an ID attribute, and the dialog will be presented with the message that I entered, enter ID value, and I can say flowers list, for example, and if I click OK, we can see here in the outline view that the ID that I typed, it's added on the list. So you can create also this type of fixes to get the values from the user and enter them in the documents. Then you can create also more complex operation using Schematron and XSLT. You can generate refactoring actions. So you can create, for example, you can use XSLT function or other parts of other XSLT code to generate content in your operations. And I have here two examples with some fixes that are using XSLT. So the first one is about adding the cells that are missing in a table. So we have here a table with these cells with gray that are missing. So here we have one cell that is missing, here we have two. So we want to add these missing cells, and the operation, the fix will look like this. We'll match, we'll use an add operation, and we'll match each row from the table, and as last child we'll add this content that it's generated here. And to generate the content, I'll use an XSL for each instruction, and I'll generate the cells that are missing. So I already have the required number of cells and the current number of cells, and I will generate the missing cells. Let's implement also this operation in Oxygen. So if we go here in the rules file, I think we have already an assert that checks this. So we have here a rule. We get the minimum number of cells and the maximum, and if they are not equal, then we'll display this message, and we want a fix that will add on each row the number of cells that are missing. So I'll create here an SQF fix. Let's say add cells, and the message will be add missing cells, and the operation will be an add operation, so SQF add, but this time I will match all the rows from the table. So in the match attribute, I'll specify all the rows from the table, and I want to add these new cells as last child in the row. So I'll specify the position as last child, and here I'll generate the content. And for this I said that I'll use an XSL for each instruction. And in the select attribute value, I also want to specify the number of cells that I want to generate. So from 1 to, I have the required number of cells minus the number of cells from the current row. And here I will just insert the entry element. So now for each row will be generated the number of cells, the number of entries that are missing. And in the assert, I will refer this fix. Now let's go in this file, in the kernel preparation, and we have here this table that has some missing cells, and we have this check, and I think I typed something wrong here. I have an error in my Schematron file, so I just need to find it. Let's go again to the tables. So I think I have here the number of cells that are missing, the for each one. Oh, okay, now it's good. So I forgot to add the 2 here. Okay, let's go again in the file, and we'll get this message that cells are missing, and on each row we want 3 cells to be added. So if I click this fix, then all the cells will be generated in the file. Then another example, it's to create an operation that will generate an X link from a link that it's added in the text. So we want a rule that will check if a link is typed in a text node, and we want also a fix that will convert this link in an XREF element. So the fix will be something like this. We have a variable that gets the string text from the text node, so gets the link value from the text node. Then we have this message that is presented to the user that says that this link should be converted to XREF, and the operation will be string replace, and we'll have a regular expression that will match this link, and we'll replace it with a node, which is an XREF node with href and the value of the link specified here in the href attribute. Let's create also this fix in Oxygen. So I think we have here a note, yeah, and we have here a link detected. So if we go to our rules file, we have here a pattern that already checks uh, this rule. So it checks that in the text node, if a link is detected and it doesn't have a parent that it's xref, it will present this message. And let's add now a fix. To speed up a little bit, I've already created this fix, so it's the one that we have in the presentation. I'll just copy the fix from here and I'll paste it in my rules file. So just has a variable, an XSL variable that gets the link from the text node and presents this message with the link value, and also has this string replace operation that will replace the link text with an xref node. And I'll refer this fix here in the report element. Now if I switch here in my file, we can see that the message is presented, but we have also the fix that says, okay, we have an Wikipedia link here. Do you want to convert it to an xref? And if you click it, you get the xref link. And now everywhere you type a link in the text, let's say we want here an oxygenxml.com link, then you'll get this message automatically and you say, okay, convert this to xlink because xref because otherwise it's not clickable in the output. So we can easily generate this type of fixes. Of course, there are also other elements in the SQF language, so you can group, for example, fixes, or you can refer other fixes from the document. You can put the fixes in other document and refer them from the Schematron file. You can check the specification if you want to learn more about this this language, and you can also check the Schematron Quick Fix GitHub project. There are also a couple of samples there. Right now there are two implementations available. One it's in Oxygen, and one it's done by Nico in the Scali Schematron engine, and this is available as a command line tool and also as a plugin in Oxygen. There are a couple of projects that are already using Schematron Quick Fixes. There are big projects like this from Tima, which is a publishing company and has its custom framework and also has business rule checks and fixes for this project. The Par6, which is a product developed by Pagina, it also uses quick fixes. The Art Deco, which is an open source tool, it uses Schematron and quick fixes embedded in XSD. Because you can embed Schematron in XSD, you can embed also fixes. And also an ATX framework used by a major automotive producer. It uses fixes in their custom framework to enforce different rules and to make different modification very easily in the documents. There's also an implementation of an intelligent style guide, the dynamic information model, which generates these business rules automatically and has also fixes for them. The TI community uses also SQF to make different fixes in their documents. And as you've seen in Oxygen, we have some checks in the data framework. We had there in the validation scenario some checks, some styling checks for the data documents. And also in our user guide, as I showed you, we have a lot of checks regarding the styling or the structure of our user guide. And you can see them. We have a free project on GitHub and you can check them there if you want. So business rules can be signaled automatically in your project and you can make sure that all your team will follow the same rules. And as I showed you, you can implement them very easily using Schematron and you can share them with your project. You can implement also fixed proposals using SQF, and the SQF language is very simple and it's not very it is easy to learn and it is very useful and it helps the user to solve the problem, but will make sure that will solve the problem with no errors. It will not generate other errors when he sees a message and he tries to fix this problem. And it also speed up the work because, as I showed you, it will generate IDs in the entire document and or will fix the layout of the table, which maybe for a user will take like a few minutes. So thank you for joining this webinar. Now I'll give control to George to read some of the questions that you already added. If you have other questions, you can add more. And if we don't have time to respond now, maybe we'll respond by email.
Thank you, Octavian. I was quite busy during the webinar answering so many questions. So thank you for asking so many questions. Okay, let's go through some of these questions. So one request was for your slides, Octavian, to have them available, and the slides will be made available on the event page, which you can find on our website under events. You find there will be a past events link that will get you to the so I will show you now.
I'll show you also the page. So we have here the company.
Under company, we have events.
Events, and here we have the upcoming events. But this will go to the rest of the past events. So now, if you click this understanding and developing Schematron Quick Fixes, you'll get here the sample files, and we'll add here also the presentation slides.
Okay. Another question was whether Schematron can be translated into XSD 1.1 schema. So the latest version of XML schema introduced assertions as a new functionality, which are similar to Schematron assertions, but they are a little bit more limited than Schematron. So in the general sense, Schematron cannot be translated to XSD 1.1. But some simple cases, for some cases, there will be an equivalent XSD 1.1 schema, let's say, that will contain assertions. Now with the Schematron, you can also control the error messages. while with XSD assertions, there is no mechanism for controlling the error messages in the standard, although both Saxon and Xerxes provide an extension, an annotation attribute that allow you to control the error messages. A note that Octavian is actually also an editor to the SQF document, specification document. So Octavian worked together with Nico to create that document. Can you use SQF in Oxygen text view also rather than the author view? Maybe you can show Octavian. Yes, the answer is yes.
Yes, I've choose to show the examples in the text in the author page because I've considered that will be more close to the authors this presentation. So the same operations can be executed also on the in the text page. For example, here, if I will make this bold, I should get the fix here on the title element, and we'll say replace bold with text, and just remove the bold from here.
So it was also someone was quite looking to see, you know, that the example that you presented when you matched on the title and then replace bold with its content. So the question was, will that work if you have multiple bold elements in the title? Right. So can you go back to, yeah, right. So yeah. Basically this will replace all B elements from the title with their respective content, right? So otherwise another option will be to match on to have the rule context as title/B, and then just assert you know, true, assert false, sorry. So you will get the error, and then you will replace the current node rather than B with its content, right? So then you will have a fix for each B element. Can I present the user with different options? Replace bold with UI control, or replace bold with its text, with its content? The answer is yes. Basically, you can provide multiple fixes. The SQF fix attribute allows you to specify space separated list of fixes, right? So now Octavian will try to implement also this, I see. So basically you can specify multiple fixes, and then the user will be presented with multiple possibilities to fix the schema. So another question was why we don't just say remove bold rather than replace, right? But removing an element means removing that element and its children. So if we just remove the bold element, we will remove also the text content of that element. And we just want to basically remove the element but keep the content, which is already inside that B element. So that's why we'll need to replace the element with its content.
And we want to focus that the operation it's replacing in this case, because otherwise it's harder to see what the operation will do for you. But of course, the message here presented to the user, it's on your as you want. So you can say remove bold or what do you want to present to the user.
Another question was, is the Quick Fix language appropriate for doing automated data cleanup on large data sets? For example, if the date formats are inconsistent. And the follow-up on this was, this example seems to be tied to interactive editing. So I think the main use case for SQF is actually for interactive editing. If you want to apply automatically many fixes and so on, I think an XSLT script will be maybe a better choice. If you are concerned about the changes an XSLT script will do to a document, like changing attribute order or losing the doc type declaration and so on, because the doc type declaration, for instance, is not part of the data model for XSLT transformations, so you cannot really easily preserve that. Then you can use the refactoring actions that we provide in Oxygen, and so you can run XSLT scripts basically in a safe mode, let's say, which preserves as much as possible of the lexical structure of the document, including doc type declarations and so on.
You can use also SQF as refactoring. The idea is that our engine, for example, uses XSLT and also Java to apply this operation. So the operations that are performed in Java are fast. So I think if you have bigger documents and you want to do like 1,000 operations in the document, it can handle this type of fixes.
Another question was, what is the difference between report tests and assert test? So basically, a report and assert are in a way the same thing. They will both will trigger a warning or an error if something is wrong in the document, but the logic of the test is reversed between them. So basically, when you you assert something, and if that is not true, if that fails, then you have an error. With report, you report an error if the test is true. If the test condition is true, then you report an error. So and sometimes it's easier to write the test expression in one way or the other, right? But otherwise they are the same, only, as I said, the logic is reversed on the test. All my IDs need to start with the word ID. I guess I could enforce that as well and just get the user to specify the element specific suffix for the ID. Of course, you can use Schematron to check if the IDs match a desired pattern, and if that fails, then you can provide automatic fixes to other prefix, for instance, in this case, like adding the ID prefix that you want, or just generate a new ID, or because you can specify multiple fixes, then you can decide, how much help you want to offer, or how many options you want to offer to the user. Can you automatically add a GUID for an ID rather than a user entered ID? And the answer is yes. You basically, within a fix, you can use XSLT. So you can write different code, XSLT code, that will generate whatever values you want or you need. what if the user needs to decide which of several possible fixes could be applied depending on the context, which can only be determined by reading the text, that is not programmatically. Well, in that case, I guess you can just present multiple options to the user and maybe use the description to direct the user to check visually or to check the text of the surrounding text maybe and decide which fix to choose. Um, Fixes also have an attribute, use when attribute. So if somehow you can check programmatically different conditions, you can enable or disable a fix using that use when attribute, similar to the XSLT use when attribute. Is it possible to localize the report messages? In the last release of Oxygen in version 18, Octavian worked on adding internationalization support for Schematron error messages. So you can check the release notes, I guess, for 18.0. Do you have, I think it's also in the documentation, right, Octavian?
Yeah, it's in the documentation, and it should be also in the release notes. I don't know if we have a presentation or not for this part. We have a presentation that we made at Prague. So if you check the presentation from this year from Prague, from the Oxygen user meetup, I presented there the new features in Schematron and SQF, and I presented also this feature to how we can generate messages in different languages in Schematron.
Maybe you can send the URL on the chat window to the
Yeah,
Oxygen users meetup at XML Prague this year.
yeah.
Which version of Oxygen supports SQF? I think we added SQF support in 17, but the latest version, version 18, has an updated support. Also in the release notes that you can find at oxygenxml.com/history.html, you can see all the new additions. So we will recommend version 18.0, I guess. Right, Octavian?
Sorry, I just
Yes, you're
searched
you're
for
busy
the
typing.
presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
there were
missed.
two questions actually on since which version Oxygen comes with the SQF implementation.
I
Um,
think 17.
Yes, I also think that, but I would recommend the latest version because we
Yeah,
always add
yeah.
improvements.
In the latest version, we added this user entry support, because in the first version we didn't have this, and also we made some improvements on this uh, how the fixes are applied to be more quickly generated. And if you also have multiple fixes that multiple operation in a fix that are executed, we made some improvements on the performance. So if you have thousands of operation, now you can use such a fix very easily.
Okay, can Schematron and SQF be used in Word with Word files? Uh, well, if you open an XML Word file in Oxygen, then yes. If you want to use that within Word itself, I guess you'll need maybe a plugin for Word or something that does not exist right now. But I guess, I mean, the idea or um, can be made to work also in Word, although I'm not sure how exactly will that work. So if you open an XML file from Word archive, basically, then you can apply, of course, on that file, because it's an XML file, you can apply Schematron and Quick Fixes on that. And a question related to what you presented with extending the framework and specifying the schema. So what is the difference in results between extending a framework and creating a duplicate of an existing framework and adding your validation scenario? So the difference is that if you extend the framework, let's say like in this case we extend the data framework and you have this data extension, then if you use that with a different version of Oxygen, then that different version of Oxygen may come with a slightly different data framework. So then your change, if you use an extension, will be applied on that data framework. So let's say now you extended the framework, the data framework at version 17, and now if you use the same project with the Oxygen 18, then you will get the updates we made to the data framework between 17 and 18, and just have the validation different, basically, with the new schematron. So only your change will be applied on the newer framework. If you duplicate the framework at version 17 and make the changes, then that will also work in 18, but it will be the same. It will not take the changes made to the data framework between 17 and 18, for instance, right? So if you duplicate, then you have a static framework that will not change if you use a different Oxygen version. If you extend, then it's like, when you extend, it's like you define a patch on that framework that you extended, and if that changes, that patch will be applied on the new version of that framework. So it's basically, when you extend the framework, you say, I want to make just a few changes, and I want those changes to be applied on the current version of that framework, whatever that is, right? So that's the difference. Okay, so we managed to get through all the questions. Thank you again for attending this webinar. We will have another webinar, I think, in 2 weeks. Can you go back to the events page, Octavian, so we can check
Yes.
the next event? So after this, we have at the end of July, we have data publishing with Oxygen XML editor. Then we will have in August, we have a short break, and the next one will be in September, where we talk about the data 1.3 support in Oxygen. Maybe we can add also, I mean, we need to add some more, maybe refactoring actions that we mentioned today will be another interesting, or also if you have suggestions, I see one already, something on using projects most efficiently would be good. So yeah, project level settings, customizing the layout based on the project, and things like that, I'm sure it will be quite interesting. So thank you for this. It's a very good idea. And again, if you have you know, something that you want to be, if you want us to present a webinar on some topic, please do let us know. We'll really take that into account and come up with a webinar. So our main contact is support@oxygenxml.com. So even if we close the webinar, feel free to send us an email with additional suggestions for other webinars. So a second vote for projects for a webinar on oxygen projects. So we'll surely schedule one webinar on this topic. Thank you. So thank you, and see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.